And welcome to this week's episode of the UFO Show on the Area 51 Sports Network, brought to you by Bet99 Sportsbook over at bet99.com. Today we have a very special guest, Rachel Dory. Rachel, how are you doing today?
I am doing well. How are you guys doing?
No complaints here, no internet issues, no nothing, I guess.
Yeah, same could not be said for me or like most of people in the province that I live in Ontario. There was no cell phones and no internet and not really anything today.
So before we jump in the betting, I gotta ask you. You had a little bit of a rough weekend. You had to watch the Jays miss out on the playoffs and relive the Leafs all or nothing. So how was that? How was that jam-packed weekend?
Yeah, so honestly, like I think hockey, like working in hockey's kind of made me like an emotionless lizard, for lack of a better word. So I was kind of just the emotional support person for my co-host Mikey, and providing like some analysis behind the scenes stuff, maybe what people would be thinking. So that was okay. I was more disappointed in the production of the actual documentary and what the Leafs did and didn't allow. And as far as the Jays are concerned, yeah, I was pissed. I think Boston's objectively terrible. I think both the Yankees and the Jays are better, and it just so happened that Boston's bullpen didn't implode last night, even though it's been an actual garbage dumpster for months now.
Well, starting the show off hot, that's for sure.
Like here's a bet for you. I expect Tampa to steamroll them.
Well, yeah, I think a lot of people think that Tampa's making the World Series, and they're gonna win. So I think that's a pretty easy bet to go down.
Yeah, like the AL East was the best division in baseball this year. I mean, you have like 490 win teams. That's crazy. And again, like you really only have two that make the playoffs that are playing a legit series. And I think honestly, like the worst team got in. They just happened to get Garrett Cole imploded, and the Red Sox bullpen didn't. At that point, when you're playing a one-game coin flip, which is why I'd never advocate for it in hockey. Hockey is the single most random sport. And so if you were to add a one-game playoff, a goalpost could literally decide who makes the playoffs or not. And that's very stupid, in my opinion. And so for me, like I don't love that in baseball, but I guess there's a lot of old curmudgeons in baseball, and I don't think it's going to change.
Well, a lot of people around here in 94, they say that a goalpost changed the whole course of the Canucks not winning the Stanley Cup back in 94. So, yeah, we know exactly what you're talking about.
But even like if you want to talk Canucks, like Game 7 is effectively a coin flip, and Vancouver just didn't score, right? I mean, they had 7 games to figure it out. But like if you're talking about one game winner take all, if you just don't score in that game, you lose, even though Vancouver was very much the better team in that series.
Mm-hmm. So once again, yeah, if you head over to the area51sportsnetwork.com/betting, you get $600 back on your initial deposit. So make sure to head over there before using some betting. Using Bet99, to get your bonus. So why don't we jump right into some futures on the NHL? We're not going to put bets on preseason because that is one of the most complicated things to ever do because sometimes teams just don't show up and
I
sometimes
think I'm
teams
like
ice.
Yeah, like I think I'm like 11-2 in the preseason because I literally look at they're like, "Oh, this roster traveling tomorrow." And then I look at who they're playing and I guess like the betting book that I like any bets that I put, like they don't pay attention to the lineups. And I'm like, there are straight up like four NHLers in the lineup. Why is the line minus 180?
Yeah, preseason is stupid to bet on.
It's dumb.
So
Don't
so
bet on it unless you really know what you're doing.
So let's jump in here. Atlantic Division, your I guess home division here. We got Tampa Bay at plus 144, Toronto's at plus 200, Boston's at plus 370, and Florida's at plus 440. Are you going with one of those four teams to win the Atlantic, or do you think that a team like Montreal or even Ottawa can sneak in?
I don't think Ottawa's making the playoffs, especially not without their best player. So there's that. I think I personally took Tampa to win, but this is a huge coin flip. I actually think if you're looking for a value bet, I would bet on Florida. That is where the most value is to me personally. I think they're better than the Leafs. I think they're better than Boston. To me, I would have it the two Florida teams, Toronto and then Boston, in terms of regular season performance. In the playoffs, that just goes like right down the tubes, and nothing happens at that point. Then I take Boston and Tampa. I just think they're the best built teams for the playoffs in that division. But in terms of who I think will win the division, obviously health is a huge thing. Best goalie in the league is Andre Vasilevsky. Best team in the league is Tampa. It's hard to to take plus money at that, but from a value perspective, I would take Florida. So those would be the two bets I'd look at.
And it's a good point about Boston, that they might struggle and they might be in that wild card because right now their goaltenders are Linus Olmark and Jeremy Swayman. Like, what's going? I know that there's talk that Tuukka Rask may join them in January, but if he doesn't, this could be a huge momentum shift in the Atlantic Division.
Yeah, like I think it would be not in the same way it's very silly to bet against the Penguins while they have Crosby and Malkin. I think it's very silly to bet against the Bruins while they have the perfection line. Now having said that, they're not the Boston Bruins of 5 years ago. That's very much not the case, but it would be a complete error in judgment to say that you would want to see them in the playoffs because if there is any team who has mastered can I swear,
Yeah, of course.
the shithousery of the playoffs, it is the Boston Bruins. And I think that that's exactly what they're built for. They know what they can and can't get away with. I do think they're going to get Tuukka Rask back, but at that point, I'm not sure that it'll have enough of an impact to win the division with Florida, Tampa, and the Leafs kind of there.
Fair. No, I agree. I think every year we expect Tampa to potentially take a step back. They keep, losing players or circumventing the cap to get around losing players. But like, I don't know how you would bet against Tampa. I mean, they've dominated the league 2 years in a row now. They haven't lost any significant pieces.
Well, they lost their entire third line, which is a problem because that was the line that really like made them more deep than any other team. But again, like you look at expansion draft and then you could circumvent the cap, but like not that much. You
No.
can't $8 million circumvent it for the third year in a row. People are going to complain. And they're going to say number one bullshit. And yes, exactly. And so I think Tampa will take a step back this year. I don't think they're going to have they're not going to run away with it. It's a much tougher division, with a lot of talented teams. So I don't think that they're going to be as formidable as they were. I still think they're the best team in the league, which is crazy.
See, I'm a big fan of Barkov, so yeah, I love that Florida bet for sure. Plus, we saw it last night. All it takes is one guy to run Vasilevsky behind the net, and who knows what's going to happen in that division.
Man, that entire situation, like, it's a preseason game. Why are we having a line brawl? Why are you running the goalie? Like, really? And these are guys. We're not talking about guys trying to make the team, trying to make an impression. Like, the guys that were involved last night were like, they're on the team. What are you proving? All you're gonna do, like, I want to say it was Nola Chari got seriously hurt last night.
Mhm.
What was the purpose of that? You've now lost a valuable player. Like, what are you doing? It's dumb. Like, I never understand preseason nonsense. It makes no sense to me whatsoever, which is why when Tom Wilson inevitably gets suspended, probably tonight, um, like I just shake my head because I'm like, it's not necessary. You do not need to be running around with your elbows up and your knees out in early October. It's very stupid.
Honestly, Bet99 needs to have a bet that says how many suspensions will Tom Wilson get this year. Like the fact that, betting websites don't really offer that is pretty shameful because that would be a fun bet to definitely put money on.
Oh my god, yeah. Like, how many fights will Tom Wilson and Ryan Reeves have this year? Over under 2.5 over. Like, I would take that in the same way that very cynically I took Matthews and Marner both on the under for points in the playoffs last year, and it just was what it was. And then I made a lot of money on Montreal coming back because you just one of those things where if you work in the game, there's just certain things that are almost a lock to happen, even though they don't make sense. And the Leafs losing was one of them.
Well, that's interesting because as of tonight, Ryan Reeves got injured and it looks pretty serious. So we'll see if he can bounce back. He kind of folded underneath his legs, so we'll see if he can come back
Yeah.
and take on Tom Wilson because really that was the reason that the Rangers brought him in.
Yeah, I saw that play, and that looked like a little bit of a slew foot to me. I didn't love it. And again, it's the preseason. Ryan Reeves, NHL player. PK Subban, NHL player. What are you doing?
Yeah, and
What do
then
you have to prove? Like, I don't. What is it? Chris Drury knows Ryan Reeves is going to be in the lineup. That's why he acquired him. Uh, Tom Fitzgerald knows PK Subban is going to be in the lineup. What are you two doing? Like, why is that necessary?
yeah, and afterwards Chris Kreider goes and tries to take on Subban. Subban just kind of brushes him off. Chris Kreider, he's really showing that he could be that captain of the New York Rangers this season.
I think, yeah, to me, it comes down to Trouba or Kreider. I personally would lean Trouba, but I don't think you could go wrong. I think both of them are going to have letters on their jerseys anyways. So it's realistically, if you're going to be a successful team, there are more than 5 people that need to be leaders in your dressing room. It can't just be the guys that are considered leaders or wear letters. It has to be more than that.
So let's shift over to the West and the Pacific Division. In right now, so we got Vegas at -197 to win the division, Edmonton plus 320, Calgary plus 1,100, Seattle at plus 1,200. Then you got the LA Kings at plus 1,300, and then Vancouver at plus 2,000. So, do you see any chance that a team other than Vegas or Edmonton wins this division this year?
No, not even a little bit. Like, not even close. This division, this is not going to make me a lot of friends out where you live, but this is far and away the worst division in the NHL. It is a joke. It is the opposite of the AL East in the MLB. Like, there are 2 good teams, and then there's 2-ish mediocre ones, and then there's like Vancouver and then the California teams. I think LA is closer to Vancouver than they are to San Jose and Anaheim. And I think it basically shakes out as Vegas and Edmonton battle for the top 2 spots. Seattle and Calgary battle for the 3rd spot. And then the Central Division gets both wildcard positions. Like, I genuinely think this division is that bad.
Now, does your opinion change on the LA Kings knowing that Quinton Byfield is going to be out for a while?
Yes. Like, I think so Quinton Byfield, I had LA kind of knocking on the door, like playoff bubble kind of thing. Like I thought they'd be in it basically until probably like the last week of March or so. Losing Byfield is tough. Like he's not a top 6 player yet, but that is like your third line's important. You need young players to contribute. Alex Turcotte also comes to mind. Jared Anderson Dolan. And I think losing a high end player like that, it's a problem. Do I think it impacts them that much? No, because I don't think that they're that good. I just think they would have taken a step forward and he would have been a part of that. It remains to be seen if he's out for any length of time, then they're closer to Anaheim than they are to Vancouver. But if he's back sort of by mid-November, I think that you'll kind of see a step forward for the Kings, which is good because, I mean, Michael Futa doesn't work there anymore, but he is responsible for one of, outside of Carolina, the best drafting over the last decade. And I've studied that. And yeah, LA's draft record is insanely good.
Well, yeah, you look at their team. What everybody's like under the age of 25, except for Kopitar, Doughty, and Brown. Basically, like they're a team on the rise for sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
Rachel,
they're a team on the rise. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm curious for your thoughts on Las Vegas because when I look at their team, goaltending, they have Leonard. He's never proven it as a bona fide starter. I still see a massive hole down the middle. Yet they've won the division like 3 years in a row. So I'm just curious on your thoughts on Vegas this season.
Yeah, so I think Leonard's won the Vezina, if I'm not mistaken. So I think he has this, and you kind of just like laid it out right there. He has this conception that like he plays in tandem. And that's fair because on the island, he was kind of part of a tandem, and also Barry Trotz exists. And then I believe it was Chicago is where he was, maybe. And then in Vegas, obviously he had Flower. Vegas is good defensively. Vegas is in a bad division with a bunch of teams who can't score. And so I think that it won't necessarily be a problem because Vegas's strength is their defense and their goaltending. They're not, you're right, they are not deep up the middle. That is their glaring weakness. That could be fixed with somebody named Jack Eichel, which I do think Vegas is in the mix there. Their owner is antsy. He likes to meddle. And if Jack Eichel ends up in Vegas and has ADR, which is the surgery, the artificial disc replacement, he's probably back by December. And then they become a very difficult. Then I probably put them above Tampa, because I think they're basically missing that one piece, and then they're good to go. So for me, that's sort of where I go there. Now, if Leonard gets hurt, all bets are off. But that's the same thing with Edmonton. If they lose McDavid or Draisaitl, that's a big problem, like a really big problem for them because there's not a lot of scoring coming from anybody else. Which, if you have 200-point players, fair enough. But I mean, Vegas is just so good. The system they play under Peter DeBoer is so fine tuned. Like it's hard to ignore, and I just don't see, barring injury, how they lose this division. And even with injury, like they can afford to lose somebody like Pacioretty and probably still win the division.
You mean Kyle Turris is not going to light it up in Edmonton and regain his top 5 draft ranking, which Gretzky said he's the best player that one of the best players he's ever seen?
Yeah, I don't think so. And to be fair, Wayne Gretzky, not a good coach, but I think we can all agree, pretty good hockey player. Which is interesting because somebody I know and respect quite a lot in hockey has a theory: the better hockey player you are, the worse coach you are, which is why you see like the best coach in the history of the game never played in the NHL.
That gives us a chance, to be coaches one day, and I like that.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
So let's jump into some original individual awards here. We got some Hart Trophy odds. Connor McDavid obviously leads the way at plus 175. You got Austin Matthews at plus 600. Nathan McKinnon at plus 660. And then I'll throw out some, I guess, long shots here. We got Mitch Marner at plus 1900. You got Alex Barkov at plus 3,400. And then Elias Pettersson for Vancouver fans plus 4,400. So I guess, do you see one of the top three winning the Hart, or do you see a player like a Alex Barkov or maybe even a David Pasternak coming out of nowhere and taking the award?
Okay, so I would be betting on McDavid. Until he proves otherwise, I would bet on McDavid. But what you could do is, because it's plus money, I would throw heavy on McDavid. But the guys that I would maybe look to, Matthews is coming off a wrist surgery, so it's a complete no-go for me, just based on some things. McKinnon, potentially, but to me, you're looking at a long shot, it's got to be Sasha Barkov. I think that Florida is due for an absolutely fantastic year, and as he goes, the Panthers go. And he showed last year playing with his line mates, they've developed some pretty sick chemistry. So if he puts up good numbers, probably, I mean, he's one of the best two-way guys, I think. Even though that's kind of depreciated over the past couple of years, I'm looking for him to have a huge year. So my long shot would be Sasha Barkov. I'm not going anywhere near any of the Leafs because there's media bias for one against them at this point. Like people just don't want to vote for them. Like Edmonton, people just straight up leaving them off the ballot is interesting. And so for me, the smart money's on McDavid. The value is on McKinnon and Barkov.
And then we'll jump over to the Rocket, which is an interesting thing that you mentioned about Matthews because he's the runaway leader at plus 340. Then you got Draisaitl at plus 740, who's tied with Connor McDavid. And then the grade 8, Alex Ovechkin at plus 880. So would you stay away from Austin Matthews on the Rocket Richard Trophy list?
No, not at 340. If he was like 175, then I'd look for some value bets. At 340, pretty hard to ignore the season he just had, given especially that he did it with a bad wrist the entire year. Like, if that's what he did with a bad wrist, exactly what is he going to do with a good wrist? And even though he didn't necessarily have the opportunity to fine-tune his shot the way he normally does, until goalies prove that they can stop it, smart money on scoring is on him. Otherwise, value-wise, I would look at Leon Draisaitl because, again, absolutely garbage division. Whereas somebody like David Pasternak, again, Atlantic, that's a tough division. It's going to be tough to score. And so I look at Draisaitl. You know Edmonton's going to score goals this year. They're going to run up the score on the California teams. I don't think Vancouver is going to be very good defensively. I think they're going to have to outscore a lot of their problems. And so there's going to be opportunities for Draisaitl and McDavid to score, which is why, like, McDavid for me wins the Art Ross. I wouldn't be surprised if Draisaitl wins the Rocket, but I still, at 340, I would take Matthews.
Yeah, it's an interesting argument because a lot of people will look at it and be like, yeah, but Austin Matthews put up, 41 goals last year or something like that. But he was playing, Ottawa every other night, basically. He was playing Vancouver. He was playing Calgary, like teams that aren't built strong defensively.
And yet, a team from the Canadian division went to the Cup final. So I don't love that that narrative. And to be quite frank, the Pacific Division this year is 3 or 4 times worse than the perceived North Division last year. Like, that division is one of the worst I can remember, and I've been paying attention to hockey for almost 2 decades at this point. It's so bad. So I think with Matthews, the best players, like, you could put McDavid in the Central Division, and which is the best division in hockey, he would still get 110 points. Like, it doesn't matter. I think Draisaitl, the same goes. And the same goes for McKinnon, and it goes for Matthews. The best players find a way to score. And until someone tells me they have, or shows me they have an answer for any of those players, that's where the money goes.
Yeah, and it will be interesting because with this new cross-checking crackdown that the NHL has, we saw it, yesterday in the Vancouver game where like every what was it, like 6, 7 cross-checking penalties, teams like
That'll
the
last about
Oilers.
3 weeks.
Yeah,
It'll
but
last about 3 weeks.
yeah, early in the season, like that could really benefit McDavid, and Matthews if they're really going to do this, then they get more power play opportunities.
If they're really going to go full send, or at least for the first month, I would not be surprised if McDavid, Draisaitl, Matthews, Marner, McKinnon, Rantanen all have 30 plus points in the first month. Like, I genuinely could see McDavid going 2 points a game while this is in effect, because Edmonton's power play is absolutely incredible. Like, it is formidable what they can do. And so to me, like, again, like the Edmonton power play is going to score so much, but we've also seen that power play points aren't necessarily repeatable, and so it'll be interesting to see.
Mm-hmm. For sure. A few more minutes here, Rachel. I wanted to circle back to playoff bets. Will they make the playoffs? Flyers at no is -125, and yes to make the playoffs is +103. Now, I just looking through Cap Friendly here before we hopped on, and I noticed that they waived Morgan Frost, sent him down to the American League. I thought that was a player that was going to fit in nicely on their third line and really help them this year. So I guess I'm just sort of curious what your thoughts are on the Flyers, because I can't figure out if they're a good team or not.
Yeah, I would say that Morgan Frost decision was not a choice that I would have made.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, extremely not a choice that I would have made. I don't really know. First of all, if anyone has watched the Flyers in the preseason, Rasmus Ristolainen is back on his bullshit
Awful.
to an extreme level. He looked like he was playing Guitar Hero the other night in the defensive zone. So to me, like, Ryan Ellis, extreme improvement. That is also going to be balanced out by Rasmus Ristolainen, because I do not buy anyone saying a change of scenery will positively impact him. No, he's bad. Like, that's the end of discussion. So for me, like, you've got Provorov, Sanheim, and Ellis. Those are 3 very good defensemen. After that, yikes, there's a lot to be desired there. We don't know what's going to happen with Carter Hart. I'm not going to sit here and speculate. That is a young goaltender that needs to have a bounce back year. And to me, if we're depending on a young goalie having a bounce back year to make the playoffs, that is a no thank you for me. I don't do it. I don't like betting on young goaltenders. I think that the pressure can get to them a little bit more easily. Teams tend to put a lot more expectation on them than necessary. And so I think the Flyers will be kind of in that dog fight, but I don't love that. I really don't like some of the decisions being made in Philadelphia, and they're going to need a lot from Giroux and Konechny to go forward, and that's just not deep enough. Like, if you look at who Philly's best players are, and then you look at Washington, or you look at the Rangers, you look at even Pittsburgh, like, obviously they're not healthy right now, but the best, like, player of the generation plays in that division. Like, it's hard to go up against that.
So 2 quick more bets before we let you go here. Do you Buffalo Sabres to make the playoffs +1,400? Just not even go there?
You could give me odds of +900 million, and I would not take that bet. First of all, with Jack Eichel, they don't have a chance in hell. Like, they waived Aaron Dell today, and I was like, wait a minute, who is playing goalie for the Sabres? I had to go and look, and no, absolutely not. There is no amount of money that would, like, you could not pay me to take the Buffalo Sabres. Even if you said, here's free money, you could put it on the Buffalo Sabres, I'd be like, no, because I think it is legitimately more likely that the stadium falls to the ground than it is that they make the playoffs.
You mean you don't have faith in a Dustin Tokarski, who took Canada to the World Juniors back in, what is that, 2007?
No, I don't. And like now, Jack Eichel is not playing for them, and they were bad with Jack Eichel. They are like Casey Middlestat is not good. Like he's not. He's maybe a number 2 winger, and they have him as 1C. To me, Dylan Cousins is better, but they don't want to screw that up. Now, they're going to screw up Dylan Cousins' development, likely. I hope they don't. They've already screwed up Jack Quinn. So, like, well done to the Sabres for just providing us with the definition of insanity. Like, they're so bad. If you gave me a bet who is going to finish last and it was more than even money, I would take the Sabres. Like, if you said Sabres to finish 32nd in the NHL, like 100 even odds, I'd be like, yep, I'll take that.
And the last bet before we let you go, Rachel's Guarantee Stanley Cup winner. Who we going with, and then we'll give you the odds.
Yeah, I don't do cup winners. Hockey's too random. I do it in football because I hit on the Bucks last year. And I do it in baseball, but for me, if you're taking any team, you're taking the Avalanche or I want to say Vegas. Like, so to me, yeah, that's kind of where I'd go.
So we got Colorado plus 460, Vegas plus 680. And just for argument's sake, Buffalo's at plus 23,900. So
yeah, that's not enough. That is not enough juice. The other one, like, I don't think Tampa three-peats. I really don't. What are the odds on Tampa?
We got Tampa at plus 580, and then your Maple Leafs are at plus 1,100.
Yeah, don't touch the Leafs. They're not winning the cup. And I will be only too happy to be wrong because that means everyone in my family will be happy. Yeah, don't do that. I usually don't do cup bets because, again, randomness. But if you're going to, I would take one of Colorado, Vegas, or Tampa. If you really want a sleeper, like maybe a more long shot, I would take the Islanders.
I was going to say Islanders plus 1,700 is seems
yeah.
to me.
Yeah, that's valuable. They've made the conference final 2 straight years.
Yeah, but to be fair, they did just partner with Barstool, so that is questionable.
Yeah, so I heard that nobody ran that by Lou, and he was not happy. He found out at the same time Twitter did. And it is, I don't know if you guys pay close attention to Lou, but it is generally unwise to do things without telling him.
You mean the guy who has a rule about facial hair is a little bit can get a little bit angry when people don't run stuff by him?
Yeah, like if the guy is so concerned about image that he doesn't allow you to have a beard and long hair, do you think he wants to partner with Barstool? Like, I don't think so. Having personal experience with Lou, I can guarantee you he does not like that.
Yeah, that was I'm sure that well, it's done now, but
I don't know, man. Like, I think if he could find a way to wriggle the Islanders out of that is exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, that was I think that was pretty shocking for 99% of the sane people around the NHL Twitter.
Yeah, I honestly, if you know anything about Lou Lamoriello, you know he would never have allowed that to happen. Lou is the type of individual that would rather quietly sponsor and like give money to the women's game than do something like that. Like, he doesn't, if you notice, there are not a lot of Islanders that appear on that particular network, podcasts or otherwise. That is by design. He doesn't like it. So I find it very, very difficult to believe that he would have been okay with this if he doesn't even like his players going on a certain podcast.
Yeah. And if you disagree with how we're talking about Barstool, you know what? Hit me and Andy up because we don't really care.
Don't hit me up. I have that filter on Twitter where if I haven't responded to you before, it doesn't come in my mentions.
Oh, that is. I have filters where if I don't follow you, it doesn't come in. Like, okay, so my filters are so robust that John Morosi followed me on Twitter last night, and it didn't even send me a notification.
Wow. Ghosting
And then I was like, oh, I
John
should probably
Morosi.
follow that guy back.
Okay, so thank you for coming on the show this week. Can you throw out all your socials where people can find you and hear you?
Yeah, at Rachel Dory on Twitter. Pretty difficult to interact with because, as you can imagine, my mentions are a cesspool. But yeah, that's where you'll find me in terms of Twitter, the Staff and Graph podcast, and soon to be other places. I can't say anything right now, but I will be on bigger networks in the next couple of weeks. So look out for those announcements on Twitter. And I'm sure I'll make the odd appearance on the Area 51 network, given who runs the network.
Yeah, big thanks to Sean for bringing you on this week, even though he can't be here. We owe him for sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sean's my guy. He's an awesome dude and makes me laugh all the time.
Okay, well, thank you, Rachel. Once again, head over to the area51sportsnetwork.com/betting page to get $600 back on initial deposit on Bet99 Sportsbook. Rachel, thanks for joining us. And we'll see you guys next week on the UFO Show, brought to you by the Area 51 Sports Network.